sir.
Copy that. Hey, welcome to the show, to the discussion, teammates, anybody that we have listening in, definitely to our panel members here. So thankful that you're here with us tonight. Thanks to the panel members for stepping up, taking a little bit of courage to step out in the unknown and to talk about a very important topic. I look forward to where this goes. Who knows where it goes, right? But the heart of this, whether you're watching it right now live with us or you're watching it on a playback, the heart I have on it and the rest of the panel is that this would drive discussion, right? So holistically, as the Air Force, we do a lot of things great, and we are truly the world's greatest Air Force. But there are some things, and if you know me personally or professionally, you know that I'm always looking to make things better. And just because something's great doesn't mean that we can't be even better. So that's what this discussion is tonight. We've asked some great friends on to have a discussion about connecting at the human level. So before we get too far, I just want to go around the room real quick and introduce everybody. So Santiago, we'll start with you and just give us a little bit of intro about who you are.
All right. Well, I am Aaron Santiago. I'm stationed at F.E. Warren Air Force Base. I've been here for almost 3 years. I'm coming pretty close to that 3-year mark. I'm originally from New Jersey, grew up right outside New York City. Yeah, that's basically it for me.
Thanks, Santiago. Will, over to you.
Yes, sir. My name is Will Wheeling. I'm 25 years old. I'm married. I have a daughter who's 8 months old, stationed at Barksdale Air Force Base. And really the biggest reason why I wanted to be a part of this entire thing right here is because personally for me, connecting with people at the human level is a struggle, always has been, but it's a skill that I've been trying to develop, and hopefully some of the skills that I've learned along the way might be able to help.
Awesome. Thanks. Cassie?
Hi, I'm Cassie. I'm 27. I'm stationed currently at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam. I've been here for about a year now. I'm originally from Nebraska.
Awesome. Thank you. Jackie?
I'm Jackie. I'm stationed at Meade. I'm 28. I'm married with 2 girls, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Eric?
Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay, there we go. Hi, I'm Eric Cardona. In Fort Gordon. I've been here for about 2 years now, and I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts.
Awesome. Thank you. So for the rest of you out watching, whether it's live or recorded, whenever you see it, Master Sergeant Heinrichs, Keith Heinrichs, he's off camera, but he's also, or his main objective here tonight is to be the Facebook moderator, if you will. So he's going to be monitoring for me because all I have up right now is my Zoom account. So if something goes horribly wrong, it's my fault, but Keith's going to be letting me know. And so he's also going to go through the questions, right? So if you've got questions, please ask them. If you've got comments, encouraging comments, then share those as well. If you have comments that do not pertain to this discussion, as we get into it, and you'll see more and more what it's truly about. If you have comments that don't pertain, I just ask you to do a vector check on yourself. If it's not passing the 3 gates of is it true, is it necessary, is it kind, then there's no reason to be posting it, right? Because what we're here to do today is try to grow and to become a little bit better human. So speaking of that, why are we here? And what is connecting at the human level anyway? And why am I so adamant about it? So bear with me. I got a little bit of a monologue. We'll go through it, just kind of set the stage, if you will. This is something that's been on my heart for quite a while. I've been in the Air Force for 19 years, I guess, so I should do a little bit of a discussion about who I am. But Chief Master Sergeant Vaden, I'm currently out at Ellsworth Air Force Base as a Mission Support Group Superintendent. Just coming back off of deployment, so on R&R right now. And this is something that's been on my heart. I've been to quite a few different bases, quite a few different installations. You can look at my bio that's out there on the Quarantine University page. But I've been to a lot of bases. We've had this discussion at different units, at different flights, different squadrons, but I have never seen it done holistically, right? And so a lot of times what we'll find is when we're in our AFSC specific world, right? It's our own little culture. And some, like for me, I'm an engineer background, so we have 12 AFSCs underneath us as well in the umbrella. So each AFSC has its own culture, but overall the engineers have a culture. Aircraft maintenance has a culture, you name it, right? Just go down the line. So when we do that, when we have those discussions, we don't get a whole lot of diversity of thought. So that's when I said, you know what? quarantine through COVID had kind of pushed me into growing a little bit myself, as all of us have. And so I said, you know what, let's just send out the feeler, see if we can get some people that would be willing to come forward. So ergo, we have the team that's in front of you right now. So I just wanted to take this to the next level in an attempt to push it to a broader audience through our diverse perspectives, right? And the heart of it is to drive discussion, right? Listen to what's being said today. You might have a particular feeling about it. You may agree with a panel member. You may disagree with a panel member, and that's okay. We don't all have to agree. But what I want you to do is listen to understand. So a disclaimer, I will read verbatim from this, just to make sure we're taking care of each other. I, along with the rest of the panel members, speak from our experiences and our perspectives. We do not speak for any particular wing or the Air Force as an entity or a complete service, right? It's our desire to have a conversation about connection that will hopefully drive discussion and change in our squadrons across the Air Force. Stories and statements that highlight certain perspectives, however, names and locations, personally identifiable information and details have not been included. So you'll hear panel members potentially tell a story or use an example, but they will not use the names of anybody or they won't give out any information that would allow them to be linked back, right? We also utilize some statistics. I'll utilize some myself. You may hear some of the panel members utilize some statistics. The thing with statistics, you may have a different number. It does do not discredit Will if he gives you a percentage and your percentage is a little bit different, right? We're going off the information that we have in front of us, right? If there's something blatant, right? If we're like 30, 40% off on a number or something like that, just shoot me a private message, put it in the comments, shoot Keith a message and he'll pick it up and he'll correct the panel or the board or me. Also, it's a varying information, so you might have some different information on it, but please feel free to chat and comment in the comment section on Facebook Live on the Air Force Quarantine University here. Just keep it professional and pertinent to the discussion. Also, please tag some friends to join you right now. Do a watch party or whatever you want to do to get more friends in, because the more people we have listening and discussing this, the better off. We've already talked about Master Sergeant Heinrichs, and he's going to be the moderator, so you'll see him on the discussions. To my panel, to my audience, thank you for stepping up to engage in an attempt to make a difference in our Air Force. And to the audience, we look forward to your engagement, wisdom, and feedback. We also hope to spark some discussion, like we've said, with your teams, right? It doesn't have to be at the squadron level. It doesn't have to be at the flight level. Just at the small shop level or office level. That's what we're trying to get here, is some connection. My opening thesis: the lack of connecting at the human level attributes to resentment, toxicity, depression, lack of inclusion, suicide, and multiple other issues across our Air Force. The area that I will delve into in the sense of belonging. So when we talk about connecting at the human level, what we're going to attack as this panel is the sense of belonging, or the lack thereof, because this is where I think we can make the biggest impact, and we actually control this, right? What happens between BMT in the first 2 years at your first base? That's a question I'd like our audience and our panel members to be thinking about, because my son just graduated basic military training and they're fired up. And then you get 1 or 2 years into your operational base and there are a lot of different issues, a lot of different concerns. To my point, I think it comes from a lack of connection, a lack of belonging, and feeling like you're tied to something that's greater than yourself. We talk about that a lot in the Air Force, right? It's something bigger. You're serving something bigger than yourself. But some airmen that I've talked to don't necessarily feel that. And let me read you a couple of things that I think will highlight this, and then we're going to hear from the panel. These are comments from airmen. I am constantly being called trash and treated badly. It's surprising that the higher-ups wonder why the suicide rate isn't going down by much, if at all. Another comment: the Air Force loves to preach about suicide and check its box, but it can't even treat its airmen like human beings with families and lives. If that doesn't upset you a little bit, then man, I don't know what's going on in your life. If that comment there doesn't like tug at your heart a little bit, or a whole lot if you're like me, because I can picture my son who's now serving in the Air Force if he had that comment, and I'm sure you can think of it yourself or your friends or family members. Another comment, 2 more. I feel like I don't belong in the flight. I feel like I don't belong in the flight. Like if I wasn't there, then no one would even care or want me there or even look for me. I don't feel like I belong, and I don't seem to fit in with most social groups in or out of work. These are words, thoughts, and perspectives and feelings from airmen, human beings. Now, some of you in the audience might think or have this feeling like, well, you know what, you just need to toughen up. And you automatically say these things, right? Just because you had it tough, and you're going to make it tough on other people. Not intentionally, but you're just not going to make sure that it's not being extra tough. What I've always said is never tell someone how to feel. Why don't you just stop? Because we can't tell people how to feel. So just stop and ask why they feel the way they do. From 2018 to today, the Air Force suicides per 100,000 have dramatically risen. Some percentages we talked about earlier, you might have a little bit different number. From 18.5 per 100,000 to 25.1 per 100,000. Chief of Staff of the Air Force, September 2020. Suicide numbers in the Air Force, or at an Air Force in a roundtable with reporters at the Air Force Association virtual airspace and cyberspace conference. Chief of Staff General Brown said the Air Force is now almost exactly where it was at this point in calendar year 2019, when by the end of that year, there was 137 airmen that had taken their own lives. Such a tragedy. One airman is a tragedy. One life lost is a tragedy. That was an increase of about 1/3 over the number of airmen who died by suicide in 2018. We was talking about it in 2019. Now we're in 2020, obviously, 2020. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, number 19, Chief Master Sergeant Bass. In her first address to us as the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, she said, the Air Force is a place for everyone. Well, what do you think, panel? With your peers, do you think that the Air Force is a place for everyone? I know 100% how she feels. I want the Air Force to be that way, and the Air Force is that way. However, in some cases, the Air Force doesn't feel that way to some of our airmen. Maybe there aren't enough mental health providers, but can we change that? What are we doing at our level? So, panel, enough rambling out of me. To my thesis, to my point, what say you? Am I off on this, or are we not connecting right at the human level across the Air Force? What are your thoughts? We'll go as the panel's broken out here. If you don't have anything, no shame in the game. Just say, hey, nothing to add. Then I'll kick it over to another panel member. So, Will, what are your thoughts? Am I off on this, or is there something to it?
Sure. Well, I can't really speak to too much about what you talked about, just because I've only been in about a year myself, and I have had some pretty good fortune as far as like my supervisors and whatnot, as far as them looking out for me, understanding that I am a person, I have a family. My shop specifically has a lot of people who have families, and so it's small as it is, and so it's really easy to develop that sort of understanding and connecting on that level, right? But as far as the other stuff, I don't have too much to say about it, except for the, you were talking about the lack of belonging. And for me, a little bit of background, I didn't really have too many friends coming up through like middle school, high school era, just because, you know, I typically had a small friend group, and those friends that I did made, a lot of times they ended up moving away after a year or two. And so I ended up becoming kind of I stuck to myself quite a bit. And it wasn't until my freshman or sophomore year of high school where I kind of got fed up with it and really started working on myself. And as far as the not really belonging to any group, that's kind of what I experienced growing up, was that, you know, I had these interests, like I played basketball and I played video games, and these fringe interests that I kind of got on the outskirts of these different social groups, but I never really felt that invested into any one of them. And what I can say about it is that, excuse me, the older that I've gotten and the more kind of comfortable and secure in who I am as a person, the more genuine that I've been able to become as far as my interests. Like if I was interested in Dungeons and Dragons or writing fantasy fiction, or if I was interested in paintball or hiking or whatever, right? The more honest I am with myself and being able to share that with other people, the more that I found that I have been able to find these touch points to connect with other people on. And so for anyone that is kind of struggling to belong to a group, sometimes it's just hacking away at it, working on yourself and exploring the different interests that you have until you find those people that share those interests. And sometimes it really is just a really niche group.
Thanks, Will. I appreciate it. Patricia, what are your thoughts? Am I off course on this human connection stuff? What are you and your peer group? What do you see?
So I don't think you're off course at all. I think there's a general scope of what causes things like that. I know I'm stationed here at Beale. We have a lot of people who have to live geographically located separate because of the way that the layout surrounding the base is. And so it's very difficult to get people from the northern region to come down to the southern region, all those things. So I know geographically it plays into our connectivity and our ability to do things outside of work. And I think that that's something that can be overlooked sometimes, is where are the people, and how do we go to the people? Because nobody wants to come back to the base to do an on-site, really. I think that finances can play into it as well. You know, I'm I'm almost 30. I had careers before, or a career before I joined the military. I'm not the 18-year-old who just joined and doesn't, really have that financial responsibility yet. So in order to go out and do things, you do need money, especially here in Northern California where it's very expensive. So I think that can play into it as well. I appreciate what Will said. I think knowing yourself and being authentic to who you are, that's a great foundation for you to have human connection with your own interests and things like that. I've never met a stranger. I've never had issues connecting with people, much to my wife's chagrin. We can go somewhere for dinner, and I'm friends with 4 different people sitting at the bar by the end of the night, and Facebook friends for life. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but
Patricia, me and you might be the last ones on Facebook in this panel.
Oh, I don't know what the new thing is. You know what? I don't want to know. I use that to the advantage of my shop, because I am very social. That when we get a new kid who comes in, if you just watch and you just listen, you know who's connecting. So I just make it a point to connect and see who people are and see where I can kind of navigate and help make those introductions. And I think that's I think it just comes down to caring, just a general sense of caring for your friends, caring for your teammates who are serving with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Eric, what are your thoughts on this?
So I actually agree, especially with that last piece about caring. Back in Texas, while I was in tech school, unfortunately, we lost an airman, and there was, I don't know exactly what happened, but it's one of those things where it just really makes you think about what could have been done, who was around at the time, who noticed any signs. And the sad part is, most of the time when you're feeling that down, it's almost you either become a perfect actor to hide it, or it's just you exhibit the signs, you show them, you express it, but people just kind of brush it off until it's unfortunately too late, and it becomes one of those things. Like that one thing stuck with me that you mentioned. One of the people had said that the Air Force kind of just checks it off their list, and it's from what I've experienced personally. It's extremely relatable. They tend to be more reactive than actually trying to either make events for people to get to know each other. Because realistically, no one really knows each other off the bat. It's all about getting to know each other. But most of the times, people already have their cliques, and then the isolation begins.
Eric, something you said. So y'all know a little bit because we talked about 30 minutes the other day before this event, but some of the audience members might not know, so we'll read them in real quick. I'll do rabbit holes or camp out. I'm a hiker. I love outdoors, so I use the terminology. So sorry if it confuses or baffles anyone, but I want to talk to Eric a little bit about this. Eric, something you said about, it was same as the comment made by one of the airmen that I was reading off about checking a box, but you said, perfect actor. So 2 things, I guess. Perfect actor, you're going through the motions, and when you're at work, boy, your personality is just bubbly, cheerful, whatever you want to describe it as. But inside, you're kind of dying inside. And then you said people just the way I took it. I don't want to put words in your mouth. The way I took it is kind of like, yeah, whatever, Eric. If you were the one to have been saying that, right? So walk us through just a little bit, and to the other 3 panel members, I'm going to go to another question by the time when we get to you, unless you have something that's pertinent to the first one we're asking, and then you can just kind of tie it back in. But Eric, to your point there, to your points, first off, can you talk to me about this actor business a little bit, and then why, in your belief, why would people brush it off, or why do you think, if you've seen it, people brush it off? Why?
There you go. Sorry, my connection's in back and forth.
You're good.
Well, there's a couple of different things, especially if you bring it all the way from basic training. You go from basic training where they instill discipline inside of you. You're constantly tense, but you're working together. So even if you don't really know the person right next to you, you're going to have their back no matter what, because you need to. Then you go to tech school, and it's a lot more laid back. And everyone has different tech school experiences, but most of the time, and I'm speaking on my cases,
Sure.
where it's been, we go from being told, don't say anything, because if not, you risk losing your clearance or risk getting removed from the military, unfortunately. So there's fear in that, and a lot of people will just either, they don't want to feel like a burden on anyone else, so they try to hide it, or they're too scared to lose what they've already worked so hard on, so they hide it. And a lot of people, when I mentioned, they kind of like brush it off. It's just, a lot of people just go off of first instincts and first reactions without really trying to get to know the person. So they don't see like, hey, this person's actually like really struggling. They're just in a mood today. So you know what? I'm not going to listen to what he or she has to say. They'll get over it. We all do. And it kind of becomes a battle, but I'm like jumbling my words, say, God have mercy.
You're fine. You're fine. I'm tracking what you're saying. That's not a problem at all. So I hear you. And what I would like, Eric, if you can make a note, I don't know if you have a way to make a note or not, but because I don't want to forget it, I want to come back. I want to circle back to they tell you, right? When you talk about people tell you like, hey, you're going to lose your security clearance, you're going to get kicked out of the United States military, whatever it is that's being said, because I heard it the other day from someone else that said something exactly like that. So what I'd like you to do is make a note so that I don't forget about that. But I'd like to go over to you, Jackie, and ask more of a follow-up question to kind of what we've already been talking about. How would you actually describe human connection? And then I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that, and I'll give us a lead in, because people might be watching right now. There might be supervisors out there watching right now or watch this later and say, yeah, connect. Yeah, I know Jackie's name. I know when Jackie came in the Air Force. And this could go to anybody. I'm just using Jackie as an example since she's next up here. But what does human connection mean? So when we're trying to get diversity of thought and perspectives from you and from what you have seen from your peers, what does that actually mean? So I've got an interpretation, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to hit the mark with you, Jackie. When I say my version of human connection is this and yours might be completely different. So for the next three people, so start with you, Jackie, what does human connection mean to you?
Well, it's interesting to me the expectations of coming from up and down. So, like, Big Air Force has this expectation that, which is a reasonable expectation, that you take care of your squadron, your flight, your members on a level, and there's also this expectation that you come in with that either. Well, some people come in with the expectation that, you're, especially after BMT, like, oh, you're a nobody, you don't matter, it's just the big picture, but you're at least part of this greater picture. And other people come in with an expectation that, we're all a big family and we need to care about each other. So it's interesting to me that expectation, it leads to the idea that like human connection is caring about each other, and while it is caring about each other, that's not really something that you can just force. And for me, my own personal experience, I've met a lot of people that, especially in leadership roles, that by the nature of their position, they had to basically initially come out and say, I care about you guys and you guys matter to me, which at first it really rubbed me the wrong way, because I was like, you don't even know me, you don't know who I am, you've never even talked to me, especially, like higher up leadership, when they'll give like a big commander's briefing or something like that, and there's 400 people and you're sitting there like, I'm sure you really care. But at the same time, after interacting with a lot of those people and really understanding where they're coming from, a lot of that comes from a genuine place of really genuinely caring about human beings in general, people that have decided to make that same pledge that you did. And for me, that human connection, even though it can't be forced and you have to take that time to actually get to know somebody, it does take effort. But even the times that you meet people and it seems like they're faking it, it seems like they're just saying, you know, oh, I care about you, you know, you matter to me, you matter to whoever, you matter to us. I think it's important to understand that, like, they're saying that from a place, they're probably saying that from a pure place.
That's fair. No, that's fair, Jackie. I think so. I was talking to Santiago the other day, and we had this discussion a little bit. Sometimes we do place, you know, what is your interpretation again, right? Of, hey, so I'm a chief master sergeant at a group level, so there's roughly, let's say, 1,500 people. It's a little bit more than that, give or take, depending on the in process and out processing, right? There's no way. So I could stand. We don't do commanders calls right now because of the pandemic, right? But I could say, hey, I love you guys. I want the best for you. I, as a leader, I need to caveat that with like, hey, Jackie, I'll say it to Jackie, but I don't know everybody's name out in the group. I don't know each and every one of you by name. I don't know what your likes and dislikes are. I'm going to get to know as many people as I can. Grand scale, I do care about us. And if you are having struggles, you are having issues, let me know and I'll do the best I can to help you. But you're right. Sometimes, so I guess where I'm saying the bottom line on this is, don't judge a book by its cover, because they might say, hey, I love you, I care about you. But start reading it. What do their actions say? Do their actions say, hey, I never do see this person. Like, I never know where this person is. The decisions are never explained well when it comes from the top up, right? Top down. I mean, we never understand these decisions. It seems like the decisions are crushing our airmen. We have feedback processes, but nobody really seems to listen. Then obviously the actions, right? You start judging their comments by their actions, saying, okay, well, either you do care or you don't care. So thanks for that, Jackie. I appreciate it. Cassie, what are your thoughts on that? And then maybe taking the next step further of what does getting to know you mean? What is the comfort level? Because then sometimes people can just want to know too much and become nosy, if you will, right? So Cassie, give us your thoughts on would you describe human connection and what is getting to know you? So if you were going to tell all chief master sergeants, all staff sergeants, all whatever, right? Here, this is what getting to know airmen, like obviously from your perspective, but what does that mean to you?
Well, for me, so to preface, I'm naturally very much a loner and not the most personable of people. I know that, and I've been working on it my entire life to try and get to where I can connect with people better. Fortunately, I do have several people who I'm friends with or coworkers with who are very outgoing, very friendly, and do try to connect with everyone in our office, minimum, and then just try and cheer everyone up, make everything a better place. Going from their example, something I've seen some people in my office do quite frequently is they'll go around and just talk. Find the people who are either sitting by themselves working or just have been kind of sitting on their own. They're shy or don't talk very often, and just talk to them about, could be anything, could be weather, could be recently there was a holiday, could be, oh, I saw you bought a new car, or I saw you went out to this place or hung out with this person. What have you been doing lately? Just to get them comfortable with the idea of, I suppose, connecting with people in the office and realizing, hey, we're all here, we're all coworkers. We may not all see everything eye to eye, we may not all like or dislike each other, but we can work on that, we can trust each other and kind of form at least these connections while we're here. And when people in our office do have, say, any kind of issue, even minor, major issue, they're the first ones to volunteer, say, hey, I'll go help them. Hey, I have this, I can help them with that. And it really makes a difference because our office generally has very, very shy people, just based on who we get in and our kind of AFSCs. So having those few people who are very outgoing, trying very hard to try and make everyone as comfortable as possible really makes a difference. As far as on a bigger scale, I know statistically, as you said, sir, it's impossible to connect with literally every person when you're in a leadership role. But I do know several of our upper leadership even though they can't connect with us on a personal level, each and every one of us, they do try to go out of their way once in a while to go in, see these offices, see who's working, try and at least get like a bit of a connection and try and hear some of our issues on a day-to-day basis, what we kind of do, what we're struggling with, what we're doing really well, so that they have a little bit better idea than just numbers on a paper showing what we're doing well in.
No, and I appreciate that. Something else I would like, if you don't mind, I'm not calling you shy. Cass, you kind of like said, hey, self-proclaimed, like I don't always connect like I want to connect with people. So you got somebody like me, y'all don't know me real well, but the people that are watching this that have seen me in action, I had to be told by my colonel that I worked for at the time. She said, hey, Chief, what she called me Caleb. She's like, hey, Caleb, you scare some people. Y'all haven't seen me stand up, but I'm about 6'5", about 235 pounds. So I'm a larger human being, and I'm full of 100% energy. And some people that's way too much for, and I get that and I respect that, but I don't always pick up on it. So where I'm going with this is, what are your thoughts, or what's your advice? I should say not your thoughts, but your advice on two things. One, for the people that maybe have a hard time connecting, or kind of like Jackie said, that's too much. You don't care about me, potentially, maybe when she was talking. So people that have Caleb run in there 100%, 100 miles an hour, people that don't connect well, what would your advice be to say, is there a feedback loop? Like, what would you tell that person it's hard to connect, and you got this person that's just 100 miles an hour? And then on the flip side of that, what would you tell the person that's trying to do the connecting, and it's like, they're shooting at different targets, right? So what is your advice to both of those types of individuals?
I suppose first, since I identify more with the not necessarily being able to connect very well, since I'm kind of awkward in my own efforts, I will say one thing I've appreciated with some of my friends is when they're trying to invite me into a discussion or to go out to do something, anything like that. Even if I don't always want to go out with them, or don't always want to participate in what they're doing, either because I'm not feeling up to it, or I don't have anything I feel is worth contributing, I suppose, the offer is always there and it's always open, and they don't start shutting me out because I don't always go to everything they do. That's definitely appreciated, because it doesn't feel like, even if I start to kind of retreat back into myself, I'm not isolating myself any further than I already am. On the flip side, as far as people who are trying to reach out, I would say just realize that some people are going to be more receptive than others. Some people are going to feel, I suppose, a little bit threatened, or at least caught off guard, not immediately warming up to the idea of, hey, this random stranger's wanting me to want to sit down and talk about my life story with them. Probably not, but maybe give them some time, give them a few tries, and let them warm up to the idea themselves, and just ease off when it seems like they're getting uncomfortable.
That's great advice, Cassie. I definitely appreciate that aspect of it, of don't give up. So I have seen this before, where we'll take somebody with my personality type that will go in and try to connect with someone, and maybe let's say I talk to Will, and I know everything from when Will was born, the doctor smacked him to get him to cry, to now he's sitting in front of me. I know every bit of his life story, and I think Cassie's going to tell me the same thing. So I'm going to sit down and be like, Cassie, tell me your story. And then you don't, and it seems a little bit maybe like it's cold. There's not a connection there. And then I just say, you know what? I don't know what's wrong with Cassie. Cassie's not going to connect. And then I've seen it to where it's like, not only just that, but then it becomes more and more isolated. And then, like you said, hey, my office still includes you in the conversation, or saying, hey, you're welcome to the conversation. You don't have to participate, but just knowing that you're welcome. So thanks, Cassie. I appreciate it. So Santiago, kicking it over to you. I would like your thoughts on that isolation piece. If you have any perspective on the isolation piece of saying, hey, the connection is not being made. I know you've talked to me in the past about, hey, know what to do when you cannot relate to your airmen, right? And we don't use "you're" in the possessive sense by any means, but just those you're responsible for. So you're a supervisor, you're a leader out there, you're responsible for taking care of that human being that might be in the rank of an airman, basic to a senior airman. Doesn't matter. That's still a human being. So Santiago, can you walk us through that aspect of it, of the isolation piece? Maybe the supervisor is not connecting real well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I know definitely on this base, like, we have a bunch of different personalities. I don't get along with everyone in my section. or in my flight at all. I love my flight. Don't get me wrong. But I just don't always get along with everyone there, and that's okay. Um, but the point is really just recognizing, getting to know them well enough to know, hey, okay, I recognize that I may not be able to connect with this person or whatever, but you know what? I know that this person hangs around Airman so and so. I know that this person hangs around a lot with this person. I know who they enjoy spending their time with and who they consider close friends. And so I know that if I struggle or if I feel like there may be something wrong, I can go to their friend and be like, hey, I want to make sure that they're okay. Hey, I want to, like, could you keep an eye on them for me? I've been in plenty of situations where people have come up to me and been like, hey, I know you hang around this airman a lot. I'm concerned about them. Can you just watch them really quick for me? Just like keep an eye on them. Let me know if there's anything that they may need or that we could be doing better as a flight to help them. And it's something that's helped a lot of people, in my opinion, in our flight and in our med group, our squadron, whatever, whichever level you want to use it at. Just the fact that people recognize who hangs around who, and recognizing, okay, well, I can't relate to this person, so I'm going to go to this person, and I'm going to ask them for advice on how to get better and how to be a better person for this person.
Well, that's great. So sometimes I think our supervisors out there in the field maybe think they have to be the hero of the day, right? So not always. I'm not paintbrushing everyone, right? And so with a wide swath brush and say all NCOs this way. I'm not saying that at all. But I think there are some people that truly struggle with. They have to be the one to connect. They have to be the best supervisor, because I am one of those types of people. I'll be honest. I'll be transparent. Like if I cannot connect with Cassie, there's a problem. Like I'm like, man, what am I doing wrong? I have to be able to connect, right? So it took me a long time between staff sergeant and technical sergeant where I realized that I could take somebody like advice like Santiago just gave us and be like, hey, Santiago, hey, dude, I've seen you hanging out with Cassie. I know y'all hang out off duty. Can you make sure everything's good to go? Like you just advised. It was so hard for me to do that. So I know there are some other, I'm not the only one like that. There's some other people out there that really struggle with that. So my heart to the supervisors out there, you don't have to be the hero to where you have to connect with everybody. You might see it that way. Guess what? Go grab someone in the section that you know is paired up, like Santiago said. So if you're being situational aware, you know what's going on in your section, in your office, then pair the people that you know are to get along. And if there's an issue or a concern that you're worried about, then utilize other people that they're comfortable with and continue to try to build that relationship. So no, thank you so much. So what I would like to do now is go back through those comments, because I had 3 or 4 more questions, but we've done, you guys, not we, y'all did a great job of interweaving and actually answering those questions. What I'd like to do now, and it's not rapid fire, but I'm not going to call on any one person. So if you've got a response to this, then free for all, I guess you could say, and then obviously we'll keep from stepping on each other and we'll kind of clear it out. But so in those comments that I read when we first started this off, that I've gotten from airmen, and I'll read the comment, and maybe nobody on the panel has experienced that, but maybe you've experienced something similar to that, or you know someone that did. Again, not associating names with it, but tell us your story, because sometimes what we've discussed or what y'all have discussed is great for people that interpret things that way, right? Some people need more of an example to help them walk through it, right? That's the way we do some of our PME, right? We do like scenario-based training. So I'm not saying create anything, don't make up a scenario, but going off what we have here. And one other thing I would like to touch on, Eric, what was it that I wanted to talk to you about that I asked you to hold on to? I've been trying to make notes over here. Did
it have to do with people telling you not to tell them that you?
There we go. So somebody, like I said the other day, had this very same comment. So I'd like to attack that, so to speak, first before we get into these other questions. You don't have to tell me who, but what level? So you're not the only one. What level are we hearing that, hey, don't go see mental health? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Why don't you tell me? Why don't you give us the example of what the overall understanding, whether that's what they said or not, but what was the takeaway from you or the group of airmen that you were with when it pertained to that comment you made?
So it was a couple different times. It even first started during the recruitment process, because some recruiters, unfortunately, just don't really care. They'll just tell you, hey, like, keep it quiet and just go in. Even though someone's openly acknowledged that they've had mental health issues before and still struggling. But most of the instances that I've dealt with personally started at basic training, and then it went to tech school with some of the sergeants.
Wow. Thank you, Santiago. I saw your message. Good to go, man. So Eric, that's interesting so a recruiter, and I know not all recruiters are saying this, but that's something that if you're hearing this message out in the field, think about that, right? So make sure if you're in charge of recruiting stations, BMT, whatever, this goes to anybody at any level. What are we telling our civilians about to become airmen, and what are we telling our brand new airmen? So as I've said before on this show, that I have a son that just finished up basic military training. I haven't talked to him about that yet, where it's just kind of like, dad's happy he graduated, proud of him. We've had those conversations. What kind of boots you want for Christmas, man? Because I know the boots ain't the right ones. Those kind of things, right? So I haven't had this level of discussion with him yet about who's saying what about mental health. But can I just clear the airwaves on this real quick? If you have a struggle, don't let anyone stand in your way. I know it's so easy to say on this panel, so easy for me to say sitting where I'm sitting right now in my house in the comfort of my home to say that. I know it's a lot different in the field when you're going through the actions that you're going through. I know it's difficult because still feels like maybe everybody's just watching you. I told a young airman in one of the squadrons I was a squadron superintendent for, I said this individual was so worried that he'd had a slip up, he made a mistake, and he received some disciplinary action for it. And we were, it's kind of one of those things like, hey, you gotta do the time for the crime kind of thing. It wasn't an actual crime, but he got disciplined for it by the commander. And it's like, okay, now let's rebound, let's recover, let's get back in the game. What do you need help with? And he was so worried that everybody in the squadron knew exactly what happened. I was like, bro, I hate to tell you this, man, but it's time for you to know the truth. Everybody in the squadron don't even know you. Like, I don't mean that in a negative way, but like you're putting pressure on yourself that doesn't even exist. You could go over to shop X and they'd be like, what shop you in again? That's just the way life is. I'm from huge squadrons, right? Really large squadrons. I'm not saying that we shouldn't all try. That's what we're talking about here is human connection, but it starts at the smallest team level. This was a completely different AFSC. He thought that they all know, and they don't. So having said that, that's where I want us to start thinking. If we're struggling with stuff, then let's go get the help that you need. You might not even know what help you need, but if we're connected at the human level, supervisors, please listen in. If we're connected at the human level, like Santiago said, he had to step out, but like he gave us advice. Hey, you know what? If I know I haven't connected 100% with Airman X, but I know Airman Y has connected with them, and I sense there's a problem, but I can't get through that door, then let's engage the rest of the team. If you're connected, you're situationally aware, you're going to start seeing these issues or seeing these concerns, right? Because after we get comfortable, kind of like Cassie, kind of like you said, right? After you get a little more comfortable, I'm not going to sit and tell you my life story, but I'll tell you what town I'm from, maybe, right? So you'll start feeling more and more comfortable. I'll start to see more and more of who you really are. Just using you as an example, not saying this pertains to you. That we'll start to be able to say, okay, now I know as a supervisor how to start getting you help. Because if we grow up with that, and I say grow up in the sense of growing up in the Air Force, man, like, so Eric is told like a recruiting station, or he's heard about it happening, hey, just don't even worry about this, brush it off, keep your mouth shut kind of thing. And then we start piling stress on top of you as an airman. Like when you come in, it's all like, yay, just do what you're told in basic training. You got 3 rules, right? Don't talk, do what you're told when you're told to do it, and collaborate to graduate. Those 3 simple rules and get you through basic training. You don't even have to open your mouth. You know what I mean? But then we start piling extra stress on you. So please, if you're listening to this, I beg of you, I will put it in the notes here in the comments. Keith, if you're still out there, can you put the suicide hotline number? I should have asked you to do that earlier. Put the suicide hotline number out there, and put a couple of different links out there for him, Keith, if you don't mind, brother. I appreciate it. But yeah, so your life is too valuable, too important, and your well-being is too important. Don't worry about I know it's easy for me to say, but please just do it. Don't worry about what everybody else is saying or thinking, because 99% of the time, they're not saying or thinking it. Right. Most of the time it is in the smaller circle. So supervisors, y'all control that of making that small circle right. Sorry, I'm on a rambling string now. All right. So back to it. What I would like is I'm going to go through these and we'll just do it one at a time. Again, if you've got something like, hey, Chief, I know where this is coming from. I've heard this type of comment before, because again, through scenarios, we're trying to help our supervisors understand, because they might think they're out there doing everything right and they ain't. Maybe they are. A lot of them are. Some of them maybe aren't. I'm constantly being called trash and being treated badly. It's surprising that the higher ups wonder. So this airman saying, I get treated like crap all the time. And I'm kind of surprised. Why is the Air Force going, why is suicide rate so high? Thoughts on that? Anyone from the floor?
So I really don't have too much to say about this one, but
Okay.
Honestly, I feel like well, the comment that was said was that they're being told that they're trash, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so on some level, I feel like in some shops at least that's just the nature of the jokes that are being said. And maybe there's just a disconnect as far as the communication there. And not to say that that's a good way to joke about people or anything like that. And there's always usually some element of truth in a joke anyways. But there, you also kind of have to be upfront and honest and be able to set that barrier for yourself. If you kind of haven't already gotten this notion from me, I'm very well, when it comes to this whole topic, I'm very individual. Like the person who's feeling this way, the onus is on you to take care of yourself, because no one's going to care about you as much as you will. And you can't help anyone else if the lifeguard principle, you can't help anyone else if you can't help yourself. And so a lot of the ways that I personally look at this is you have to take the onus yourself to say that, hey, that's not okay. I don't like it whenever you say this to me, or to at least say, hey, like take them aside, have a one-on-one conversation and be like, you know, if this is a joke, cool, whatever, I don't care for that, or whatever conversation needs to be had, but taking the initiative on your own part if you're the one who's feeling that way about it.
Thank you. So again, y'all remember, I'm reading nonverbals on the screen because, well, y'all should see everybody as well. So does somebody agree or disagree with parts of that, right? Because Will has a certain stance on it, and you don't have to disagree with him. I'm not trying to pitch you all against each other. But does anybody see it a little bit differently?
I do a little bit. Just, I mean, I agree with him on some parts. I do think that, you know, your own contentment, your own happiness, and your own self-fulfillment is your own responsibility to a point. But at the same time, and I've never been, not in the military anyway, have been put in a scenario where, you know, somebody has straight out said that I was trash or anything like that. But like you said earlier, actions speak louder than words. So, you know, if even if, you know, nobody's calling you trash, nobody's necessarily treating you like trash, but if, you know, if when you when you come into the room, when you come into the conversation, your opinion, for example, is heard, and then just kind of, all right, that sounds good, let's move on, instead of heard and listened to. If you're not being listened to and you're just being heard, that's, you know, a disrespect in itself, and that cuts deep, especially for a lot of new airmen that are, you know, that are hearing all of these things like, oh, you know, we want your ideas, we want your feedback, and that's definitely at least the environment that they're trying to push down, that, you know, feedback is good and ideas and opinions are good, but a lot of times the whole attitude of that's just the way it is can make people feel like they're trash, you know what I mean? Because it's one of those things that they're like, give me your ideas, give me your feedback, tell me what you want, tell me how you feel. And then it's like, well, yeah, I understand how you feel, but there's really nothing we can do about it because X, Y, and Z. And then, you know, you're in for a little while longer, and you start to realize that actually there's, you know, there are definitely things that you can try, or there's ways to like tweak the perspective. But anyway.
No, I got you. Anybody else want to attack this topic? Patricia, you look like you want to say something.
I would just say if there are airmen out there, I think an important note is that you're not trash and you're not worthless. And if you're being told that in your shop, that needs to go up. That needs to go to your first shirt. That needs to go higher than, as high as you can take it. Because if that's true and that's a reality that you're coming into every day at work, you're not going to be able to accomplish the mission. You're not going to be able to do what you're, you know, set out to do. And everyone voluntarily joined the Air Force in an active service, right? So if that's you and that's something that you're dealing with, take it up, man. Like, you don't need that. You don't deserve that. And you're not worthless, and you're valuable.
That's great words, Patricia. So, Will, 100% agree with you on the fact of, and I'm going to let you reattack, man.
Okay.
But I agree with you on the fact of, like, and I think everybody on the panel agrees with you, like, hey, you're responsible for your happiness. Other people can shoot you down. But before I go too far, what did you want to reattack with?
I just wanted to reiterate that, like, before you take it up like that, a lot of the problems that most people have can be solved with a one-on-one conversation. Just an honest and open conversation between the person who's being aggrieved and the griever. There have been obviously there are the instances where it does go beyond that. And if you've taken your measures and you're handling yourself correctly, then by all means, take it on up the chain. However, whatever means it takes. But you could end up ruining someone's career or whatever, just because you have a difference in background, and maybe the way that y'all communicate is 100% different. Maybe this person grew up where they are just ragging on each other all the time. That's how they have fun. That's how they joke around, and they mean nothing by it. And for someone else, obviously, that's kind of abrasive for them. And so understanding that we all come from different walks of life, I just a huge proponent of being able to have that conversation, even if it is uncomfortable, even if it is awkward. It's just that kind of the necessary step.
I got you. So I think what you're describing, if I may here for a second, is a very comfortable work environment where I feel like I'm confident in my own abilities. I'm a fighter. Like, we won't go too far into this, and I think my lights are having some issues up here. But when I came into the Air Force, I was rough and tumbly kind of person. So I was always on the aggressive. So if I didn't like something, I was hoping that you said something I didn't like. I know it's not good. So I could be like, yo, that ain't right. What it just says in this little book, I read it right here. It says you can't say that. But that's my personality, right? Or especially when I came in, I'm a little more chill now. But so you get some people like that, right? That are very, I'm confrontational, or was when I was at Airman Vaden, confrontational. I didn't have a problem talking to people. Some people, then they're not going to ever do that, right? Some people, and this isn't a, hey, let's call Will out, not at all. Because I think it's a good description or a good example of how different we all are. Some people are the onlys, right? Like, they're the only female in the room. They might be the only male. They might be the only ethnicity, whatever that ethnicity is, the only one. So I'll give you an example. Somebody said, so this, I agree 100% with Patricia. If you're getting called trash, and I think, Will, you took it to the next step, like, you agree that if you're being called trash, that's wrong. But there's some other things that maybe led to this. If you weren't directly being called trash, maybe it just felt like that's what they were saying and they weren't, right? But if you're getting called trash, then that's 100% wrong. That's got to stop. All right, so say if it is a person that says, I got given this example. It was on my podcast. Y'all can go back and listen. I won't say the person's name. They gave this example. They are an African-American. When they were an airman, they're not an airman in the grade of airman anymore. When they were put into a shop to work, they were kind of like in a holdover status, if you will, within their community. They had multiple AFSCs. And the shop foreman was Caucasian and said, what are we now, the zoo? The zoo. You might not take that any particular way. He 100% took it that way. He's the only in that situation. He didn't, he's like, I got a couple of months and then I'm just done. I'm going to try to fix these lights. I got a couple of months and then I'm just done. I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to press on, right? Whatever route you want to take. Think about, like, hey, I'm in an AFSC that's stuck at an installation. Maybe I can only go to 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever the case may be, right? And then, so the person that came in and said, I'm like trash, right? I'm the only, there's a bunch of other, the same ethnicity, maybe a lot of them same gender. And then I see them talking to the first sergeant and they're like boys, or they're like in a clique. It looks like they're in a clique, right? They're like always just chit chat and having a good time. First sergeant might not have any clue. So if you're an only in that position, they probably don't have, I shouldn't say they don't have, they probably aren't going to take that step to be like, hey, Sergeant Vaden, Staff Sergeant Vaden, like, when you said I'm trash, I don't like that. Some people will say that. A lot of people won't, especially if they're in the only situation. So what I want us to do is, I'm glad we're having this discussion because I really think it hammers home to our supervisors out there, regardless of where you grew up. We do things differently, right? in America, we got a lot of different states. Some people might even come from outside of America that are now in our uniform service. But that doesn't give us the right to just act on how we were raised. We have to have a higher social or an emotional IQ. We got to be able to scan. So as y'all prepare to be supervisors one day too, right? I'm not trying to turn this into a lecture. Be able to scan the audience. I'm not telling you, Will, but when you walk in a room and you're saying some stuff, if people are picking up on it or are okay with it. If you can tell, I bet if I walked in the room and said whatever it was, I'd be able to look real quick and be like, oh, Cassie did not take that well. I don't know what I just said was wrong, y'all, but it was wrong. I apologize, right? That's where I'm trying to get our supervisors to understand, because some of them might just see that, hey, that's what we've always done in this career field. That's what we've always done in this community, whatever that community is. But if we're making any one particular person feel like they don't belong, that's a problem. Now, I'm not saying we're the Codlin Corporation. We go out and kick in doors and shoot people in the face. That's what our services do, right? I hate to be so crude with it. Maybe it's because I just came off a deployment. I didn't actually go do that. I never kicked in any doors when I was on my deployment. But yeah, we train to defeat enemies that are our peers, maybe near peers or peers. So I'm not saying we turn this into a Codlin Corporation. I know that's not what you are saying. I think it's at the heart of it is getting to know what Patricia, what makes her tick, what makes Santiago tick. And it's going to be different things. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's not. But as a supervisor, I need to understand that and then pick up on those nuances where it's like, ooh, Will don't seem to take that so well. And then pulling up beside him and say, hey, Will, hey, bro, I know when I was doing the roll call or whatever you call it in your different functional areas, man, it looked like something didn't sit right with you. Is it something I said? But that gets back to the heart of being connected at the human level. Sorry, I'm rambling again. I feel bad. You're supposed to be y'all talking, not me. Y'all sat down with the wrong person then, I guess. Anyway, any thoughts on that before I see we're running about almost an hour, so I'd like to cover at least one more, and then we'll do some wrap up, kind of your final advice to the future you as a supervisor or to the supervisors that are out there. But any other discussions on that particular scenario that we utilized?
I will say, as someone in a career field that is very small, and also one of the ones you mentioned where we only have 1, 2, 3 bases we can go to, one thing I always heard throughout training and a little bit getting into my duty station is try not to make enemies, because you will be working with these people your entire career. So there have been occasions during training, specifically I had a few occasions during training where people would either have disagreements or bigger issues where a couple of individuals I know would not be comfortable in the same room together, but would not be able to hash it out, or for various reasons just couldn't either confront the issue or deal with it on that level. So I can understand trying to resolve everything at the lowest level, trying to actually I suppose confront the person or try and solve it amicably if you can, but I know that also there are several times where that's not necessarily possible or feasible. So
Sure, and in those instances, it would make a lot of sense to push it up. I was just saying,
yeah,
if you can, if that is available to you, then that should be the first course of action.
So something, Will, I like your point on this, and I don't want you to feel like anybody's beating you up. If I'm a young airman that is maybe not comfortable, I'm going to pal up with Will, right? Or Will's personality type, right? But like, hey, bro, like, what's wrong with Sergeant Vaden? And I say bro a lot. I'm not saying everybody would say that, right? So same as like Santiago told us, the supervisors, hey, keep your eyes out. Who's kind of good with who, and who can I utilize to help get to people, to help them in whatever they're going through. So the airmen out there listening, the airman tier, same thing, same advice for all of you. If you know that it's not like Cassie just brought up, like, don't make any enemies. Well, crap, am I just supposed to take it like this the rest of my career? Will's over the corner, but like, nobody treats Will like that. So I go over to Will, right? Just using that as an example. So if you're an airman that's watching this right now in the grade of airman or airman tier, same thing applies to you. Don't feel like you got to do this alone. Patricia brought up a great point. You're not alone. You are not trash. You are worthy. Chief Bass said that, hey, the Air Force is a place for everyone. We can make you the best at your AFSC without ever using one derogatory statement, without ever cursing at you, without ever even raising my voice. If you're in CE and you're doing low crawling, you're a defender. That's what falls into our groups, right? A lot of different stuff. But that I'm going to raise my voice, but like move your a little faster, right? But I'm not going to ever degrade you, right? So there might be times where people elevate their voice. So I'm not thinking our TIs elevate their voice. I don't want people to walk away from this saying, Chief Vaden just wants everybody to be coddled. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying with human dignity and respect. All right. So the next one I'd like to do is, and I think we've kind of sort of answered around this as well, but just wanted your thoughts on the belonging piece. I don't feel like I belong. I don't seem to fit in. Not saying that you have, if you might have felt this way yourself, not saying you have to share it if that has been you, but have you heard this among your peer groups, the sense of belonging and kind of your thoughts on that? Or I guess the lack of belonging. Where do you think that stems from?
So, oh, you go.
Okay. So I definitely think that it really just depends on obviously the person, as well as the environment that they're in. So for example, this space, it's a little bit harder to get to know people. You have to put in a lot more effort in order to get to know people. And thankfully, I was born with one of those personalities where I just naturally gravitate towards people, and I get to know people a lot easier. So I know a couple of people, they become friends with me because they know I'm the gateway to becoming friends with other people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But I also know that the first few months that I was on this base, I was 1,700 miles away from home. Never really lived anywhere outside of my home before. Never was financially independent. Nothing like that. Didn't know anyone, and it was hard. It was scary for me because I grew up outside New York City, and now I'm in the middle of Wyoming. Like, there's nothing here.
It's not the same.
And not to say that it's bad here, because I know Cassie grew up not too far away from here in Nebraska. It's not that bad, but it's such a different lifestyle from what I'm used to. I'm used to big city life where everything's within walking distance, or I was 15 minutes walking from 2 different major malls growing up. I could walk there 15 minutes, no problem, be back. So like, it's just a completely different lifestyle for me, city boy by heart. And it was really hard for me to like really feel comfortable. Like 45-minute drive to me, back home in New Jersey, that's way too far. I'm not driving there. But now here, 45 minutes, oh, that's just Fort Collins. Like, cool, we're gonna go to Fort Collins like today and come right back. Like, these are the different things that we have to think about for our airmen that are coming in, because while I don't believe that the Air Force or the military in general is for everybody, I know everybody that joins wants at least to not hate their 4 to 6 years that they're going to be in. Everyone wants to look back and be like, I don't completely regret that decision.
Yeah.
And so I think a big part of that is just remembering the fact that, hey, like, we were all those airmen at one point. We were all that scared airmen who showed up at their first base by themselves. I'm about to PCS to Japan. Never been outside the country except for, one time when I went to Ecuador with my grandmother, and she spoke Spanish, which I don't. So like, I had someone there that I knew. She was kind of like my only tie to the culture. But this time I'm going to a completely foreign country by myself, and I don't know anybody out there. And thankfully, I've had this experience here at this base where it's stateside, and it's easier to like keep in touch with my family and all that stuff, because while I don't get along with my family that well, like, they did get me through those first few months and helped really keep me from losing my mind right away. So I think it's just really important to remember that every time you see a new airman come to your base, like, they're probably just as scared and alone as you first were when you got here.
That's good. Thanks, Santiago. Patricia, you had something to add there.
So for me personally, I mentioned my wife, and that is a huge point of contention in my own family. So I was actually disowned for that fact. So I joined the military. My parents had no idea. They didn't need to know. They didn't want a relationship. So I connected with my unit on that level, literally coming from not really having a family connection. So my unit became my family. Every unit that I've been in since, I've got that family connection, because that's really what they are. I spend more time with my coworkers, then I do my family, my leadership, then I do my family. So I haven't struggled with a sense of belonging or a sense of not belonging in the military. On the contrary, it's in my personal life. But I'm Intel, and one of the things that I hear more commonly than not is not that the military is not for me, it's that Intel is not for me. And there isn't an easy out for people who have now become a $75,000 investment from the United States Air Force. And so I think if there were ways that people could identify earlier, hey, not for me, I don't want to do a clearance, I don't want to do secrecy, I don't want to do a windowless room and have the days go by and me not know what it is. I don't want to do mids, you know?
Yeah.
I think if there was something for an Intel community, we'd get a lot more retention out of the airman tier moving into those early year NCOs. That's a big Air Force problem, I think, but that's the belonging that I hear more often than the overarching military is, man, this is not the job for me.
No, you hit on some great points when it comes to how we select or what we advertise to airmen or to civilians to say, hey, why don't you come in and do this? And, you know, when I first came in, it was, oh, that sounds really cool. I had no idea what they were talking about, right? I'm not saying y'all that was for you, but for me it was. So I would love to see us at some point in time. I wish it was already happening. And I don't know how we do it with meeting our end strength requirements and all that jazz. But doing more of a personality, you'd have to do a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, maybe more of like Intel. The personality that does really well in Intel and loves the job is this, whatever that is. So you could do a little bit better than an ASVAB maybe. I'm not beating the ASVAB up, but my son took it and I was like, I remember taking that, I guess, maybe, how did I end up where I'm at? Did that test project that? No, not at all. So again, not beating it up, but you got some great points there. So Patricia, if I may though, just real quick, just imagine though, if you didn't have a good unit, right? So there are airmen out there like you that have been disowned by family for whatever reason, maybe exactly for you, same thing you experienced, maybe it's completely different. Doesn't matter, because just because one family disowned because of reason X doesn't mean that, well, that's not as bad as I had it. We shouldn't go down that road. That's not a road to go down. Remember, don't tell people how to feel. But imagine you get disowned and you get into your career field and maybe you do or don't like it. Doesn't really matter, because the supervisory chain, whatever level, just stinks. Now we got a real problem, right? I don't like my job. I picked up somebody the other day. It was last winter before I deployed. They were walking. I was like, hey man, what you want to be when you join the Air Force? You always get in a conversation with me when you get a ride. So now people are like, no, I ain't riding with him. You ask me 500 questions. Anyway, is a hydro tech, and he wanted to be a medic. I was like, well, in my mind, I was like, well, fluid in the plane, fluid in the body, not the same, right? So just imagine, right? Disowned from family. You don't feel like you have anywhere to go. You're stuck out where, Cassie, no offense, like I'm at South Dakota right now. All this right up in here, like Santiago's over here in Wyoming. I'm in South Dakota. If you ain't from here, there ain't much here, y'all. I'm from the South. Like I'm sorry, I'm where the Southern came out. So imagine all that combining. We have airmen like that, right? So yeah, Patricia, I'm thankful that you've got a good unit. You got a strong family unit there with you, and a strong family unit in the military. When I say family, your immediate family right there with you. I'm glad that all that's clicking for you. That makes my heart feel good. But there are airmen out there that it breaks my heart because they're in a completely different situation, similar situation, but totally different actions by the supervisory chain. So anything else? Anybody else got anything? And then we'll kick it over to Keith for questions if he's got any from the field. But anything else on that topic that we just discussed there?
Yeah, no, of course I have something to say about it, right?
Let's go, Will.
So again, individual level, right? Like if you're that person, and the reason where I'm coming from whenever I say all this, right, is because, like I said, whenever I first came on and introduced myself, I grew up being the person who was never belonging to a friend group. And through a lot of years and awkward time spent and time invested into myself, I have gotten to a point where I have all these interests and I can speak somewhat competently and, you know, all these other things. And so coming from a development stance, if you are that person, it's not always the location that you're into. It's not always the job that you're into. Sure, that may restrict what sort of opportunities that you get, but you can create a lot of opportunities for yourself too. Especially right now with COVID, there are all sorts of resources online. I'm just now like retroconning my education into like theater and improv via online Zoom groups. or you're just doing improv exercises with people in a setting exactly like this. Theater was something that I wanted to do in high school that I never did because I was too embarrassed and too insecure about myself. So now I'm trying to do that. Dungeons and Dragons, something that my dad did growing up, something that, you know, the whole high fantasy genre in general, whether it's reading, writing, game, whatever, right? Something that I'm just now starting to kind of get into. I'm 25 years old. I am, I mean, if you look at me, I'm a pretty average, like, white male. Like, that's just what I am. And so, like, you wouldn't, but by looking at me, you would
What?
assume certain things. I know, right? Like, and so, like, just how I look, you would assume certain things about me. Just like for anyone else. But as far as the not belonging into a group, there are so many things that you can do. You can start up, you'd be surprised at how many people feel exactly the way that you do. A quick example of this was that I've got a neighbor. He is a little bit older. He's, I want to say he's a tech surgeon. And we just got started talking one day, and somehow it came up that he writes fantasy fiction. I would have never picked this guy for it because he's like bald head, like rugged. He wanted to be a Sears specialist. Like he was the stereotype, right? Until you get to talking to these people and you find out that they have really quirky interests, and they have these really weird things that, hey, I'm into that too. Let's talk about that. Oh, you're also into this? Awesome. And from there, that's kind of what I was referencing, where you just get these touch points where you can connect on people and you can explore these interests. And the flip side of that is that you have to be willing to be uncomfortable and put yourself into those situations and be awkward. And no matter how you feel in that moment, like it's good for you. To just kind of end this little rambling of myself, one of the quotes that I've just kind of internalized for myself is that growth and comfort cannot coexist. And so if you're wanting to be a better person, if you're wanting to stop feeling that way where you're depressed and just so far disconnected from anywhere else, like, you have to be willing to invest that into yourself. And I actually do have one more thing from Frozen 2. There is a song, The Next Right Thing by Kristen Bell. It is the best song that I have ever heard about depression, as in like a how-to manual. And all it is taking the next step, no matter how small it is, until it gets a little bit bigger. Step again, take a jump, so on and so forth. If you haven't seen it, haven't listened to it, definitely recommended it for those purposes. Anyways, that's what I got to say.
So Will, you have already maybe a podcast or a video teleconferencing or something where we can help spread this to other airmen, right? Because I see isolation as the ultimate enemy. Right, when our minds, when we're going through things, I've been through a lot of things. We won't get into it on this show right now, but isolation is the enemy, right? So just something to keep in mind, man. I just want to throw that your way for thought. You know, something to think about. I guess for anybody.
And it's very easy too. If you are that like isolationist type, it's very easy to shut everyone off and do your own thing. And like for me, I only have one really good friend right now, and it takes so much effort on my part to invest into that relationship and into my family and into myself, and still be able to fulfill all the needs that I have. And I just can't juggle for too many relationships. And so sometimes you do just kind of have to force yourself to get out there. And even if you're not feeling it, even if you're not necessarily if you're not feeling it, right? Then sometimes you just have to do it anyways and be disciplined enough to know that it's good for you.
I appreciate it. Anything else, any other thoughts? And what I am going to do as I ask this question, after we go through, see if Keith has any questions for us, for the panel from Facebook Live, I will give you a chance to we'll go around the room, so to speak, in closing, closing comments. But anything else on this topic before we kick it over to Keith and see if we got any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I've got something, kind of a practical solution. We all sit down, or we should have sat down with our supervisors and done ACAs. Add a section on that ACA that says, what would you like us to know about you? Like a little bit about your background. So if that's not something that you can organically do, put that in that one-on-one with you and your supervisor. I think that's something that's super practical and quite simple. Add a couple lines on an ACA form.
All right, Patricia, next, ready for supervisor? Is that what I'm gonna put down here? Because I'm just gonna take that right off. That was my closing comment right there. No, I'm joking. It was in there. It was in there, so I'm gonna line through that. No, that was great feedback. No pun intended. Anything else?
So something similar to what Patricia said. One thing that one of our interim first sergeants did. She like bought these big things of candy, and like they were like the good candy. So like there was like big Reese's and stuff like that. So like like the 2 Reese's cups in the package. It was amazing.
Whoa.
I know, right? She was like rich or something. But she she would bring that into work, and if you wanted a piece of candy, you just had to answer a question. Like each one would have something taped on it, and it was like, I think the one that I grabbed, it was like, "What's your favorite movie?" or something like that. Just something like little questions to help get to know the people that she interacts with on a regular basis. So, if adding something to the ACA isn't something that isn't always feasible, especially since that might be like big Air Force a little bit more. Something small like that, have a bowl of candy, and if your airman wants some, they just have to tell you something personal about themselves.
I like it. We used to, my first supervisor, shop supervisor, I won't say his name. I'd hate for the Air Force agencies to come back and get him, because I've done the same thing as a master sergeant and above. You have brand new airmen, and on Fridays in CE, we clean our equipment, especially in my career field. We clean our equipment on Friday, all of our heavy equipment, construction equipment, like bulldozers, backhoes, and that stuff. And so you get done early. Everybody knows it. And then usually you have a computer-based training. I know you're all like, oh, but it's really like first-person shooter games. That's computer-based training for our tactical, ops for our head. Anyway, and we would say like, hey, you want to go home, or you don't want to stay and play Xbox or whatever? Answer whatever from your CDCs or something about the career field, and then, like you said, Santiago, something about yourself. Where are you from? What's your favorite sport? Whatever, So just little things to get to know your airmen. So that's awesome. Appreciate that. So Keith, do we have, hey, you got somebody joining you. That's awesome. Mine, I had to put mine in the kennel. She would be in here on top of the table. Keith, do you have any questions from the field? Any comments that you want to pass along?
There is nothing from the field.
Okay. I saw you liked Will's comment. That one's going to go on your wall, you said? You're going to put it up in the office?
It absolutely is. That's legit.
That was good. You have gotten approval, Will. So anyway, I'd like to go around the room now and just get your parting thoughts, a couple of minutes or so from each of you of human connection, advice, whatever you want to tie, so to speak, tie a bow or tie a ribbon on this. Just your final thoughts on what we've been discussing tonight. So we'll go backwards, counterclockwise this time, or clockwise for what I've been going. So we'll start with you, Cassie. What are your closing thoughts?
You caught me when I was thinking. Oh no. I suppose closing thoughts. I suppose the one thing that I think about a lot with, as far as the human connection thing, the biggest thing when you're interacting with people or when you're trying to connect with people on any level is you have to start small and you have to do it on an individual level, but you have to develop a sense of empathy for everyone you're around. You have to be able to, even if you don't understand their circumstances, even if you don't know enough about them yet, understand that they're a person and they have their own struggles. They have their own circumstances that have led them to whatever they're doing at that moment. And you have to understand that and try and work within that and work with that person.
That's good. I like the empathy. Eric?
I actually completely agree with that, and as well as being transparent with one another, and not just with, suppose, like the outgoing person versus the shy, but if one of your close friends is just saying just like disrespectful comments, just tell them like, hey, like that's not all right. Holding each other accountable is one of the biggest things, because I have a lot of friends here that they're non-confrontational. They'll just sit back in silence and take it until they crumble, and then I see them just break down. So, and the other people just keep on, even though that they've been told like stop, they'll just keep on. So holding each other accountable is one of the biggest things, and really understanding that we all come from different walks of life. Just because this person had it well doesn't mean that person has it. Just because that person has a smile on their face doesn't mean that they've had the perfect life. So just really trying to get to know each other and just being a decent human being.
I love that aspect of being a decent human being. If we just had everybody look at it that way, then they definitely wouldn't have any problems with empathy, as Cassie pointed out. Santiago, over to you.
I should probably unmute myself before I try talking.
It's all right. I do it too.
So I think the biggest thing for me is really, don't forget, for the supervisors and all that stuff, don't forget what it was like for you when you were, a young airman, brand new to your first base, didn't know what the hell was going on, and you didn't know left from right at that point because you've never been there, you've never been on your own before. So don't forget what it's like. And second of all, also, so I created, and I didn't really get a chance to talk about this, but I did kind of do sort of a suicide awareness or a resiliency type program here on this base that I created. And one of the things in there, believe it or not, in the AFI that governs supervisors and the whole enlisted structure, it actually does talk about how supervisors their job is to take care of airmen. And while we might be taking care of them at work, are we making sure that they're good in their personal lives? Are we making sure that they're adapting well to their surroundings? You don't have to babysit your airmen, but you have to make sure that they're definitely adapting, because if they're not adapting well, then that leads to a whole nother set of issues that is really hard to deal with on your own. So I think that's the biggest point that I can make.
Appreciate it, Santiago. I'll give you a real quick shout out too. So I'll include that his podcast. He just sat down with me the other day, and we did a recording about what he is talking about, what he did out at F.E. Warren. I know other bases are doing it as well, but just a huge shout out to Santiago and having the courage. And so I encourage you all listening to this, watching this, the ones on the panel, to listen to his podcast that we sat down and did a couple days ago. I'll include it in the links here as well when we post this. So Jackie, there you are. You moved screens on me. I was like, wait, it was supposed to be downward left. Anyway, Jackie, your thoughts.
Yes, sir. So for me, I mean, we talk about being human beings, but that vulnerability that makes us human is really important for, I think, us to see, not just, not just expressing vulnerability up, but expressing vulnerability down, or displaying our own vulnerabilities, our own humanity. So for me personally, it's been important to see even though your leadership is human, the people around you, they're all human beings. It's obvious, but at the same time, on another level, those vulnerabilities, those things that make us human, those are the things that we need to see from above us too. We try to, obviously we want to exude that excellence in all we do, but I think it's okay. I think it's more than okay. I think it's necessary for us as supervisees to see our supervisors, expressing that oh yeah, I'm not really great at riding bullets. I defer to my, my buddy, gosh, who was it that's, somebody literally just said something about how you should have a mentor that is above you in rank, but you should also have a mentor that is below you in rank or age. And I thought that was really powerful, because there's so much to learn from both sides. And I think it's really important, if you want to make that human connection, you have to have that vulnerability. You have to open up and have that willingness to learn.
Great point, Jackie, about vulnerability, right? And then the life experiences, whether you call it a mentor, coach, whatever you want to call it. My sons, they keep me in check, so I get it from when people say, "How you stay in touch with the younger generation?" I'm like, they're right there. You know what I mean? It's Dad, that's stupid. Don't do that. You know what I mean? So great points there. But on the vulnerability, if I can real quick, Chief Joe Bogdan is a good friend of mine. He said that nobody's impressed with Superman. I mean, you're impressed, but you're not inspired really by Superman. Like you're like, man, I'm going to go out and jump off a building and fly. It's going to be great. I'm going to save the world. Nobody's inspired. You're, oh man, that's pretty cool. This dude's pretty awesome, but you're not inspired by that. So Jackie, to your point, those vulnerabilities, you see, you obviously y'all getting the full display. I'm pretty transparent. Like, oh, this dude is got a couple screws loose or something. I know, but seriously though, just being vulnerable, being who you are, true to who you are, and being authentic, right? And then people are going to see like, I can be Chief Vaden. Like that dude ain't no special thing, right? He's just somebody out there just cares about people, right? So anyway, no, great points, Jackie. I appreciate that. Patricia, now the screen is like shuffle on me, so I might call on you twice. You don't get a second time. Well, you can if you want to. Patricia, I think you were up next, though.
To your point, it costs $0 to be kind. It's $0 to be kind. It literally costs nothing to care about people, genuinely care about people. It's as easy as, hey, how's your day? Oh, it's good. Awesome. What's so good about it? That one extra step costs $0, maybe a little bit of time out of your day. For the supervisors, the immediate supervisors, you got to be trustworthy. You have to know that if somebody's coming to you with a problem, it's easier for them to come to you with good news than it is bad news. So if somebody comes to you, regardless of good news or bad news, give them your time. Look away from your computer. If they can't trust you with the good stuff, they're never going to trust you with the bad stuff. Yeah, be authentic, be yourself, and verbalize what you need because you are the only one who really knows what you need.
Thanks, Patricia. Hallway conversations. I don't like hallway decisions because they happen too quick, and you affect things negatively because you don't spend enough time on it. But hallway conversations, man, you can really impact somebody's life, and you don't even realize it. Somebody hit you up 3 or 4, 5, 10, whatever years later and be like, Patricia, that 5 minutes that you spent with me in the hallway literally saved my life. Like you had no idea what I was going through.
My group commander stopped me in the hall. We had, it started as one of those hallway conversations. Hey, sir, how are you? Doing well. How are you? He said, hey, how's Jody, my wife? I was like, oh my God, that's the group commander. How does he know? He's like, is she enjoying her job at the BX? I'm like, well, that got a little weird, but yeah, she is. How do you know she works there? Yeah. And that resonated. I think about that often and that was in passing. Hey, how's Jody?
Yeah.
He didn't have a cue card.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just care about people. Great point, Patricia. Will, did I miss anybody before Will goes? I don't think I did. Will, you've stayed in the top left corner of my screen. So
before I talk for another 10 minutes.
Oh, is that what it is?
No.
All right. Final thoughts from you, Will.
Sure. Kind of as a addition to what Patricia was saying and what y'all were talking about these small moments. A quick example. I remember sometime in high school, I was really working on like smiling at people, right? Just passing by, just giving them a smile as I'm walking by. And the reason why this became so powerful was because I was just walking in Walmart getting groceries one day as a high schooler, and I happened to pass by a woman. I smile at her, and she legitimately just stops me and thanks me because I just looked over at her and smiled at her, and she feels like no one ever does that anymore, right? And I mean, she didn't have to say anything about that, but the fact that she did just made this huge impression on me. And so now, no matter where I go, I've gotten not as good about it anymore, just less intentional. But especially whenever I'm in the store and I make eye contact with someone, I'll make sure that I give them a smile, just because it had that much of an impact on me that it had the impact on her. And so just as a reiteration of small acts of kindness really do make that impact. That's
a great point. I saw a Starbucks sign. I will probably get it wrong, so Starbucks, don't sue me. But it said, you never, somebody could stand in line next to you, could be having literally the worst day of their life or something to that effect. So I think that's what you and Patricia are both hitting on. And like Patricia, you nailed it when you said like it's free to be kind. Free as in monetarily, it's free. But we have as humans, we have a pride problem. A lot of humans have a pride problem. Somebody cuts you off. That 2 seconds that somebody cuts you off in traffic controls however long you let it run. Hopefully, I know y'all don't. Y'all are like, have a good one. That's how y'all are. But not many humans are like that. So anyway, thanks so much for being on here. Keith, I want to open the mic up to you. Do you have anything you want to add before I run my mouth for the last couple of minutes and close this out?
Man, Chief, I have so much, but I'm actually going to save it for tomorrow with the other senior NCOs.
All right, sounds good, my man.
But
Hey,
yeah,
I appreciate. Go ahead.
I will just say that I am a career assistance advisor, a master sergeant, and one of the things that I've reflected through this whole time, we were talking about mental health and all of these other things. I was almost kicked out of the Air Force. I'm just saying this so it's on the video. And for anybody that is maybe in that position, just know that you can come back from anything. Self-enrolled into ADAPT. Here I am, 17 and a half years later. What I would consider personally is being, pretty successful. And I don't want to step on the airman's toes because I think y'all said it just to a T. There's no possible way I could say it any better than what you guys did tonight. But I promise you, I have some things to say on the senior NCO portion tomorrow.
All right, so y'all be logged in tomorrow then, because we'll try to go live again. I'm not sure how the feed was. Keith, I'll talk to you offline about it. And for everyone on the panel here, just stay on after we kill the live event, just so I can send them more of a personal thank you to you. But so for everyone that's watching, hopefully this spark, whether it was live or whether it's later, that it sparked an interest for you to go have a conversation, right? At the small unit level, the office, the shop, the section, the flight squadrons, the squadron, because previous chief of staff had it right when him and Chief Wright started that initiative about the squadron as the heartbeat of the Air Force. All major changes, all major improvements happen at the squadron level. To be honest with you, that's the heartbeat. That's where the humans are. That's where the lifeblood is of the Air Force. Obviously, there's humans in other echelons, right? But that's where the most impact is made. That's where the first-term airmen are. That's where the first-term officers are, if you will, that are coming into the Air Force that are brand new, going through all the things that y'all just shared with us. So thank you to the panel. A huge round of applause for you guys for coming on here, having the courage to step forward and just share your perspectives, right? And having some great conversation. I know it will bless and touch many people's hearts as they listen to this. And hopefully, like I said, it drives that conversation. So thank you so much for everyone out there. Keep leading, growing, connecting. And y'all know the deal. Till we talk again, keep it real.